It's such a big bank as well. It was the largest bank at the time. He changed the name to Bank of America during the war because Italy was on the side of the Germans. And when you look at the wealth of the Rockefellers who were in the Chase Bank and J.P. Morgan who had built his bank, but AP decided that he was to give his money out. So most of his money he had given away before he died. Very low, $500,000 a state. You know, it was a good sum of money, but it wasn't. In comparison to the great giants of American industry and banking and finance, that's pretty modest. And you say it's because of his orientation to philanthropy and giving and charitable. We're going to have for our commencement address this year Adam Grant from Wharton, who's written a book called Give and Take. I don't know if you know that book, but he talks about givers and takers, and he makes the point that giving is a little bit like money in the sense that it multiplies. Taking is just the reverse of that. And so it sounds like AP was a great exemplar of the importance of being a giver rather than a taker. And if you look at California, a lot of the great industries and iconic symbols in California were funded by AP. So the Golden Gate Bridge, it was built during the Depression. It was the largest suspension bridge at the time being built in the world. People said it could be built. It was over, the San Francisco Bay had a lot of wind and strong currents. And he said that he would fund it. So he financed and said on all of the bonds to finance that bridge. And he knew that it failed. It becomes probably, it's funny, but it didn't fail. So now you have this wonderful bridge. He funded the fledgling movie industry, which kept the movie industry in California, where most of it was migrating to New York, where the money was. And so he financed, the agriculture in the San Joaquin Valley. There's a great story about him financing just ordinary people after the San Francisco earthquake. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Yeah, after the earthquake, he came out. The buildings were, some of them were still on fire, and he came out with a wagon with gold on the back of the wagon, doing banking business there on the street when everyone else was closed. And he was giving it out to just ordinary people, not just the rich people. And my understanding is he always used to say that all those loans that he made, all those earthquake loans, all got paid back. And they did, yeah. But he was really a banker for the people. He, as I said, really developed consumer banking. And he changed it. And in his heyday, and this is an interesting connection back here to Logan, he not only had Bank of America, he had First Interstate Bank at that point. He had the Bank of Hawaii. He owned 30% of Citicorp in New York. He owned Transamerica, which was an insurance company. And Mariner Eccles, who was chairman of the Federal Reserve, hated him and said he couldn't have that. That was antitrust. I was doing it. And so he had to divest of everything except for Bank of America. Wow. If you took the value of all of those assets today, they would be considerably more than $500,000. Scott, what is your personal objective with the bank? You've been now at the bank since 1990, so almost 30 years, and as president, roughly 20 years. What would you, you've done so much already, is there anything more that you'd like to do? You still have an agenda? Yeah, well, I think the agenda is the same. Banking is an interesting business, and with all of the fintech technology coming out, it's changing, and you people bank differently than our current bank and our bank, and the goal is to ensure that we are providing services and a way for people to bank as they want to bank. But we have that technology available, that we're providing good advice, and that we continue to help. And that's what drives me, that opportunity to try and create value for consumers, for businesses. You run Zions Bank in Utah and Idaho, has it's almost doubled in terms of the number of branches, and it's about 5 times as large as it was when you became affiliated with the bank in terms of assets. So you're over $16 billion in assets, something like that. Yeah, I mean, if you take it all, including our investments, we're about $20 billion as Zions First National Bank. Yeah, and the holding company's about $60 billion. How do you account for the growth and the success of Zions Bank over that period of time? Well, I think it goes back to the basic philosophy and the great employees that we have that have this vision that they want to be out there as community bankers, helping people to succeed. Yeah. And let's turn now to a little bit to consider the community that you serve. And it's Utah and Idaho, but I'd like to focus in on Utah if we could. You're so deeply involved in economic development in Utah. You've chaired the governor's council on that. You've been deeply involved with the World Trade Council. One of the things you've been doing, which I personally and Kathy, my wife, have benefited from, is that you've been organizing these trade missions that the governor has gone on. You and Jessica Lee and Kathy and I were together on a wonderful trip to Israel about 4 years ago with the governor. An amazing trip, by the way. Thank you for organizing that. But you're so deeply involved in economic development. What are your thoughts about Utah, its current state of evolution and its future prospects? Well, I'm really bullish on our state. I think there are a couple of issues that we have to watch out for, but I think we have a strong economy. We have a very diverse economy, which I think a lot of us living here don't realize the strength that gives us for how diverse our economy is. But I think what really makes our economy strong, and this was said by the Wall Street Journal several years ago, it's just coming out in another article by Bloomberg, that Utah is the best place in the country for upward mobility. And there has been talk that the middle class is dead, that you can't rise up and improve your situation except in Utah. And I think that gives a tremendous enthusiasm and vigor to our economy. And if you look at the number of startups, the number of small businesses, the idea that Utah is the Silicon Slopes, and that we have more VC funding here than Colorado or any place other than San Francisco and San Jose, that's just remarkable. And I think the study from Shetty and others at Harvard elsewhere was that a child in the lowest quintile has a greater chance of getting into the middle class and into the upper middle class in Utah than any other place in the country. Yeah, and I think there's reason for that, and I'll give you a couple of examples that I like to think about. One, if you look at Shelley Gardner, who started Stamp, a scrapbook company that Discount International. She was a mother. She needed to augment her husband's income. She was creative, and she started this business that just exploded. We have people who go out on LDS missions. They come back, they taste it, in the international area, and they say, gosh, here's what they did there. I can do it here in Utah. Or I can start something in Utah that I can take overseas and do it there. So you have Utah Utah's largest export, other than minerals, Darren Parker, who has set up a company called Parker International, which exports beef around the world. Utah's largest export. He went on a mission to Brazil. He made connections with the beef company there. He had connections with the beef company here in Utah, and now he sells beef all over the world. And it came from this idea that I can do something. And I think that's really the magic of our success here in Utah. One of the things that's always good about Utah is it's one of those entrepreneurial places in the country, and we're always on the top 10 list for that. In part because we have so many business startups, which is a key major in entrepreneurship. We also have a lot of business failures. So maybe to speak a little bit to the issue of how education plays into the future success of Utah. Yeah, well, I will give this example. Pat Jones, some of you may know Pat. She's coming here to speak in that chair in a couple of weeks. Well, she chairs the Women's Leadership Institute in Utah, and she is developing a course to help women who may not have a degree and may not understand finance to know what they need to know to develop and grow a business. And I think that when you see business failures, usually they grow too fast. You don't have the controls in place to manage the growth. You overextend, and then things collapse. At least that's what I see. So it's not that the idea is not good, but it's that you have to manage your growth and manage the business, and you have to hold back sometimes on growth for that management. Clayton Christensen, the Harvard professor, just wrote a book called Competing Against Luck. And I tried to bring it today, but I couldn't find any copies. It's about a year old. But it's, you may know Clayton Christensen. He's from Rosepark. He's considered as probably the most influential business consultant in the world. He's a good friend of mine, and he's the brother-in-law of the head of our Department of Management today as well. And that's terrific. But he developed this theory of disruptive technology. But he came and was struggling with the issue that you just raised. Why are there so many failures? And this new book, Competing Against Luck, answers it. And basically what he said is that if you don't know what the client wants, if you don't know the real job that the client is trying to do, then you're competing against luck. And you can be lucky and make a success, you can be unlucky and have a failure. And he gives the story, which I think is a classic one. McDonald's hired him because they were baffled. On the East Coast, they had a lot of people in the suburbs coming into their stores early in the morning and buying a milkshake, and they wouldn't come back, and they wouldn't buy any more. And McDonald's had spent a fortune trying to get them to buy a breakfast sandwich or something else besides the milkshake. So they finally came to Clayton and said, help us. And Clayton did the research, and he said, McDonald's didn't understand the job of the milk coming in. That they didn't come in because they were hungry. And so when McDonald's tried to force them or encourage them to buy more food to eat, that was the wrong job. They were coming in to buy a milkshake because they wanted something to keep them awake as they commuted from Connecticut to New York. And they tried a donut. It was too messy. They tried a banana. It was too messy. But a milkshake would last, so that 45-minute commute, it was easy to drink, and it would keep you awake, and you get to New York, and you didn't feel full. And so he said, if you put little bits of fruit in it, you'd sell more because it would help do the job better. They suck up the piece of fruit in the straw and hit the back of their mouth, and they're over before it. Yeah. And they did that, and then all of a sudden their business quadrupled. It was all going back to understanding the job. And I think that's the message that I'm trying to get out to our entrepreneurs. If we understand, we can come up with a great idea, but if we can't package it with the idea of here's how it will help you do the job that you want, you're competing against luck, right? Wonderful place to pause down and open it up for questions from the audience. We'll just check. We've got about 6 minutes. Who would like to ask the first question? We've got one right down here. Here's the microphone that's coming. If you'll please stand and state your name and tell us what your major is, we appreciate it. My name is Rick Anderson. I'm a theater major. So my question is, was there a time that you felt like you were in over your head? And if so, what did you think about that? Yeah, in fact, if you're a theater major, you enjoy it. I went back to Columbia, actually, because I wanted to go to theater. I had an uncle back there who was a producer on Broadway. And I got back there, I thought because of the family connections, we hit it out. And he said, he's almost as exact words, he said, you're way over your head. I only hire professionals, and I don't have any talent. So, and when Tom Cook from Apple came out here last fall, he told me something that I really struck as a true statement. He said, a lot of times we get in over our head. And sometimes we fail, and sometimes we muddle through. But he said, what's important is that you never give up. And you may have to reinvent yourself and reinvent yourself again. But if you hold true to the values that you have, and if you are well prepared, you will always be successful. And I think that's true. If you try something, and again, I think this is good advice for businesses. It's good advice for the bank. If you try something and it doesn't work, you have to be quick in closing it down and going on to something else and reinventing yourself.
My name's Brian. I am a finance navigator. My question is, what is something about your current job or your career path that you found to be a passion of yours? Whether it's obviously the career or the community involvement you have with Science Bank right now, or any other experience in your life, what has been the passion of yours related to your career?
I would say yes, and I think this advice that I pass out to all of you. I love to come to work each day. I'm passionate about it because I love the people that I work with. And when you think about it, I'm probably working with my colleagues more than I'm with my wife. And if you don't enjoy the people that you're working with, it can be a miserable experience. And I know that. And so I love to come to work. I love the people that I work with, and it's a great relationship. Scott, just because you mentioned Jesse Lee and work in the same sentence, I have to ask you about your marriage day. Can you tell the story about how you and Jesse Lee were married in the embassy in Tokyo and what was going on that day? Yeah, I was working in Japan, and Jesse Lee was working back in Washington, and she came over for us to get married, so we were by ourselves, and we were getting married at 3, and I worked till 2, and we came back, and in Japan, to get married, you go to a ward office, which is like a neighborhood police station, and at least when we did it, the man steps forward, and he signs the book, and the wife stands behind, and she doesn't sign anything, and so Jesse Lee tells me she never promised to support me or to honor and obey. And she wasn't sure that we were married because she didn't want to ask anything. And so she wanted to go to the embassy and get the Japanese certificate out of my hand. want to get advanced about this. How big a role does hard work play in success?
Well, I think, I think the key ingredients to success is, one, you have to be willing to put in the work. Two, I think you have to be creative in how you go about the work. But three, you need to have a balance in your life. And I think when you think about balance, a lot of people try to put it in silos. I have to spend this many hours at home, this many in the community, and this many at work. But in my philosophy, I like to think of it sort of, when you go to the circus and you see the jugglers, especially when they balance and spin plates on one pole. They have 4 plates going at the same time spinning. They know when they have to go back to each pole to give it a spin to keep the plates going. And if they don't get back in time, the plate will fall and break. And I think that's how you achieve balance, is that you know where you have to be, when you have to be there to keep things going.
Well, Jeff, we do a lot of things together. She in turn is also very involved in community affairs, and also in higher education. She was the board of trustees of the Summit Community College National on the board of regents. So she's deeply involved in these community affairs as well. Yeah. So, another question?
My name is Andrew Kenny. I'm studying accounting and explaining. I also think English, I think.
Okay.
So my question is, I think the videos of 2,600 employees, I think a solid review on part of Idaho how to demonstrate leadership and help guide all of the people without being able to talk to each individual person.
Well, I think the key is one, you have good people that you work with, good managers throughout the organization, like you have here, that you have good communication that goes out so that everyone hopefully is on the same page. They understand the values. That's why we publish these guiding principles that you all have, that sort of sets the tone, and that if you have a strong brand, a strong culture, and good people, I think it allows you to operate well.
Yeah, I'm about that. Can you pull the mic over? So we're taking this and we want to make sure your question gets picked up on the tape.
Sorry, Mike Wallace from Science Lake. On that, Scott sent out a weekly email to all the employees, kind of giving us some guiding principles. The one this week, for instance, was on maintaining the brand's appearance. Story about some flowers dying in a branch, and the customer wanted to take out his money because we weren't taking care of the small things. And so it's looking at all the small things and taking care of those things. So weekly, we hear from Scott. He's a very involved president and a great person.
Yeah, thank you. Other questions? Professor Fawcett has a question. Professor Fawcett, let me just tell you, Professor Fawcett is a board member of a rival bank, Cache Valley Bank.
That's a good bank.
It's not fair to set me up here. So I'm just wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about the competitive environment of banking in Utah. Oftentimes there's a lot of conflict between banks and credit unions. How does Bank kind of navigate that competitive environment, position yourself in the market for success?
Well, there is a lot of competition here, and Utah is an interesting place because we have the second most highly concentrated group of credit unions in the country. Alaska is the only state that has more, and yet we have a lot of banks. We have all of the major banks. We have a lot of regional banks. We have a lot of community banks, and I think that really adds vibrancy to the community. But what it does is that the competition, I think, is good, and it keeps all of us honest. It keeps all of us sharp, and it's great for the customer because they go to Mountain America and then they come to us and then they go to Cache Valley and say I can get this there. And so if you look at things, our interest rates on deposits for the state is the highest in the western part of the United States because of that competition, which benefits the consumer. Our rates on loans are among the lowest. Again, that's due to this competition. And so I enjoy the competition, and I think we have really a great cadre of bankers and credit union people that are out there trying to provide access to capital, and that competition keeps us all sharp. And I think if you look at some of the products and services, even from the small credit unions and small community banks, they are just as advanced from a technology point of view as that you can get from any international bank in New York, and it's because of the competition. But I should ask you that question.
Professor Fawcett is an expert on competition, though. Scott, I wanted to ask you a little something about the Great Recession, its impact on banking, and then the impact of the regulations that have come since. I don't know what the number I'm going to share was the number of banks and financial institutions before the Great Recession, something like 44,000. What is it now? It must be more concentrated than that.
Yes, in fact, for the last 3 years, we are losing on average a bank a day. And that's they're going out of business or they're being merged, but we're losing about 360 banks on average a day for the last 3 years. So it's coming down. Some of the national banks are shrinking in terms of branches, so the number of branches are coming down. But some of the community banks are expanding in terms of branches. So again, it goes back to this idea of how do you compete, and I think it makes our environment here in Utah really not only competitive but vibrant.
The Glass-Steagall was eliminated prior to the Great Recession. This was the law that permitted banks to be involved in investment banking. It's been very controversial, and I believe the McFadden Act was also removed. Was it prevents interstate banking? What do you see as unfortunately, and I was just back in Washington, both at the White House and on Capitol Hill on Wednesday, trying to encourage some financial reform coming out of the Great Recession with the Dodd-Frank and Durbin amendments. Banking has had, I think, their arms bound, and when I say banking, I include credit unions in this. The Volcker rule has basically put back the Glass-Steagall. So we can't invest in a fund that we don't control. Before that, we could invest in, and we did, in probably a dozen venture capital funds, which I think helps provide capital to startups. We can't do that now unless we control the fund. We can't trade on our own behalf. Again, the idea that that's risky and puts your deposits at risk. The competition between the retail industry and the banking industry under the Durbin Amendment, which capped the interchange that you could charge on a debit card transaction. And that interchange reduction, banks should use that, in my view, to provide free checking and cover fraud and so forth. And with that going out,
free checking is run away because we don't have that income coming in. And so their banking is changing, a lot of it due to what happened during the Great Recession and the government's desire to ensure that if we go into another recession, no bank will be too big to fail, and that we won't have a collapse of the financial system or a near collapse that we did in that 2009, 2011 period.
How big a risk do you think we would repeat the 2008-9 period?
Well, I don't think that we will relive that period. And the reason why, and I'm biased, so I'll state that up front. But what really led the recession, I think, was what happened in the real estate market. If you go back to the beginning, it wasn't because banks or credit unions were being too liberal in how they give credit. It went back to a statement and a policy of President Clinton that said, we want to increase home ownership from 61% to 68%. And the only way you do that is you got Freddie and Fannie, the National Association of Bought Home Loans, to reduce their criteria. And so you had people buying homes that didn't qualify. And during that period, they could justify it because the value of the home was going up so fast that they would sell it and they could make money and then they'd have cash and they could go into a home. And I'll give you an example. We had an intern working for us. He was going to the University of Utah. And he decided he was going to buy a home. Now, he's an intern. He worked for 12 hours with us. And he was going to school full time. And he bought a home just below the University of Utah football stadium on 13th South.
Did he get a loan from you?
No, he didn't get a loan from us because we didn't participate in it. He paid zero down. He got 100% financing. He rented it out to 4 students, which gave him enough money to pay the rent. It worked so well that he went and bought a second home from zero down. And in those days, you could get a mortgage without giving any financial statements. It was, you just stated what you made. There was no checking it. So he had 2 homes, and each home was worth about $300,000. So $600,000 in debt. He worked 15 hours a week from us, about $12 an hour. And he made the payments because he rented it out. Well, the recession came, property values dropped, the students moved out, and he was stuck. But he just walked away because he had nothing to involve declared bankruptcy. And well, he didn't declare bankruptcy. He just gave the homes back and walked away. And you can do that. And if you saw, if you've read books about the period, what happened is that people realized, Wall Street realized, that they could take these mortgages, they could cut them up and package them and sell them out as collateralized mortgage obligations. And they were sold around the world because they were based and secured by real estate in the United States, and values were going up. And they thought, this is terrific. And it was terrific until the market collapsed. In fact, I brought some books here, and one of them has to deal with it. These are some of my favorite books. And this is too big to fail. And some of you probably have read this, but there are a couple over here if you want to take it. But I think that what was good about this is that how you can just fool yourself and believe that things are okay when they're not. And when you read this story, especially when you read it about Lehman Brothers, the CEO, Richard Bull at the time, didn't believe that the company was having any problems. And he quoted that. He said, well, what do you mean we may go into bankruptcy? And the next day, he was bankrupt. And that really brought down the whole system. And so they said that what I thought was interesting is it's just what happened. But also that you can fool yourself if you're not really looking at what's happening. Tell us about the rest of the book. Yeah, so this one, some of you may have read, but it's Larry Miller. He didn't write this book. His son Ryan did, and it's Behind the Drive. Larry's book was Driven. And after Larry died, Larry worked so hard that a lot of these children, and Brian is one of the youngest, didn't know Larry. And so he decided he was going to write a book about his father. And so he wrote this. Now, this is a collection of stories that he got from people who knew his father. But he's put it into chapters based on Larry's business philosophy: generosity, faith, love, integrity, stewardship, loyalty, friendship, passion. And what's interesting about this is that when you read it, you get to know sort of who Larry really was. But you also know his business philosophy. And Larry was a true entrepreneur, and he really gave back to the community. So I think this is a terrific book. And Gail now, if you've read Fortune magazine, is a billionaire and a richest person in Utah, and another great benefactor of this building. Yeah. So that was a book. This other is an older book, but I really like it. It's called When Giants Learn to Dance, and it gives sort of some short-term goals that entrepreneurs should take if they want to be successful.
President Mark Cantor, a professor at Harvard School.
Yeah, and again, the idea is if you can teach elephants to dance, you can do anything. But it's really, if you like business, and for those business makers, I think it's really a terrific book. And then 2 others. This one, Your Second Sons, and one of the authors is actually a doctor at the Grand Eye Institute in Salt Lake. And he would go to Nepal and partner with an Indian doctor, and they would remove cataracts from the people in Nepal. If you remove your cataracts here in the U.S., it's a fairly simple operation, but it takes a couple of hours, and it costs several $1,000s. In Nepal, they developed a technique that they could do it in 6 minutes, and it costs $12. And he tells the story of how these people are basically blind because the cataracts are so heavy that they remove them, they can see, and when they can see, all of a sudden they become contributing members to the economy instead of being a drag on the economy. And I think it's a powerful story about how people are changing the world, but also how people can develop new procedures and really change the health of the population. He lives in Utah now. He was CFO of Citicorp during his time. He's in the book. He was in all of these meetings. And in fact, he tells that he was arguing with the government, the Treasury, that they should let Lehman fail. And Citi offered to buy him, and they said, no, it's time to let someone go. And had they not let it fail, we probably wouldn't have had the crisis.
Yeah, Gary is right here and spoken to our finance club. A great leader.
What's the last one? Yeah, this last one is called The Human Savior. This is a new book, and it's by Joel Conkin. And Joel is probably the foremost demographer in the country. And what makes Joel, he's from California, what makes him unique is not only does he have a real understanding of the numbers, how is the population changing, but he understands the implication that it makes for society.
And demography is destiny.
Yeah, it is. And what's interesting about this book, he looks at the development of our cities, and he's saying that, the planners of the cities don't understand what's happening with the population, and they are building cities based on their planning rules that are going to destroy the cities and turn them all into ghettos. And his argument is that families want to live in the heart of the city, but they don't because they don't have housing for a family, and the schools aren't good, so they escape to the suburbs where they can get a house, and they have their schools. And again, I think it's just, he talks about Utah in here, and the Utah sort of bucks the trend. But I think it's really interesting on how you can look at numbers, and one side says, well, it means this, and another side says it means this, and depending on which side you go, there's very different outcomes. But this is super.
Scott, thank you for bringing these books along with us. There are about 60 books over there, so I'd encourage you, the students who would like to take one of these books to pick their favorite and read some of them. Scott, we're at the end of the hour. I hate to draw this to a close because it's been such a fabulous session, but I want to just make an editorial comment to our students in the audience. We say our pillars at the Nussbaum School are entrepreneurial spirit, ethical leadership, global vision, and analytical rigor. And you couldn't have been taught by someone who exemplifies these things more effectively than Scott Anderson in a great career and service you're doing for us today. Thank you, Scott. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Before I introduce our guest, we have a fabulous video that actually Tim Larson on our team found of our esteemed guest. So if you want to take a look, it's about 2 minutes long. I'll give you a flavor for what you're in for today.
God goes smooth, that goes down, earth goes sweet, and house goes sweet. Cow goes smooth, donkey goes gray, and the air that thing goes too. Chick goes orange, chick goes girl, and the field goes ow, ow, ow. There goes down, and no one knows. What does the fox say? What's the pig say? What does the fox say? Hotty, 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 ho, hotty, 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 ho, hotty, 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 ho. What's the pig say? What the pig say? Secret of those guys, ancient mystery, somewhere deep in the Capitol. I know you're listening. What is your sound? Will we ever know? Don't see in the street. Don't show your sound. How did it go? Watching after me. What is the sound? Will we ever know?
So what happened with this kind of fun, I probably should say that, sorry David, this is your show, okay? And we're going to have some fun today, okay? But I'll get in about 5 words. Yeah, but what happened is, part of this really should be about building your brand, okay? And our brand is Washington Mill. And but what happened is, we hired these smoke machines to have this smoke coming out, unbeknownst to us, we set out the smoke detectors in the Capitol building. So they had to evacuate the entire Capitol, but John and everybody else. And so, anyway, the fire truck shows up, and I'm kind of going like, I think I better get out of here. But we're going to have all these very dynamic, attractive young, workforce, a lot of Iraqis. Well, I said, just take care of these guys, and I thought for sure I was going to get tickets, written up. But they show up and go, can we get the soft drink, can we get a cup of coffee? They charm the socks off the fire marshal, and the superintendent of the colonel of the highway patrol, on and on and on. So kind of felt like, so a couple days later, we get the video, it's right before Christmas. I'm sitting over the governor's mansion talking to Governor Herbert. Governor Herbert, he's kind of a useful guy, and he kind of likes doing this and that. And the other, I said, Governor, go see our Christmas video. So he's playing on his phone, he's tapping his foot, going da-da-da-da-da, and all this stuff. So you're the guy. He said, I was interviewing, candidates for the Supreme Court. I was going to D.C. I had that. They take the office, and he said, I'll go get some. That's the story of the Christmas video. It cost me probably, we had to hire the guy to see, and I had to pay $2,500 to do that video. And I have gotten more value out of that video because people see it. Like all of a sudden, I kicked out it. And people really like it. The other thing we do really kind of cool is we do cool Christmas cards, and the same knows Ross and others. We do kind of cool Christmas parties too. And part of it is the gathering, getting people together, and keep your coins happy. So anyway, back to you, sweetheart. So I have this great opening. Now, do we have fun day today, or we have boring day? Boring day, okay. That's a very important guy. I mean, last week you had a Nobel Prize winner. Lars Peter is, okay? I mean, you know that guy? We're students together. And some of us, we thought we're smart, but then Lars, I think, broke science classes with us. Like, he was somewhere between Kolob and Pluto. I mean, brilliant. But I want you to know, Here's just from some of my research and a broad view of what we've learned about narcissistic CEOs. I looked at all the disclaimers to start with all of these questions, so I can start with disclaimers. The first one is the things I'll talk about are average effects. You're allowed to think about specific individuals, and yes, that is something you should do, but I'm not going to talk about specific individuals. It's just figured that way for me. The second thing is, I'll spend a little more time on that. We're going to talk about narcissism as a personality trait that everyone has. All of you have this trait to some extent or another. And that's really a neat thing for a lot of people in their jobs. They should have a sense of narcissism. It's not a bad thing per se. In its extreme, it can be a personality disorder. That is usually bad. I usually think of some really dysfunctional people that might have that. So I'm going to talk about the trait, not necessarily the disorder, and I'll get into what that means. So let's break into what CEOs, how they exhibit narcissism. I'm going to talk about what narcissism is. You may have in your mind already some expectations about what you think narcissism is. You've heard this term, you may have used this term, but it's a little more intricate, so you may take it first. To start, we need to know all about narcissism Greek mythology and understand where the term narcissus comes from. So here's one of the things. Pictures of Narcissus looking in the pond, and he sees an image of himself. And so there's some text there that I think is the background of the story. All that is lovely in himself he loves, and in little ways he wants himself. Yet never may he read the bonds around the image of himself. He knows not what he there beholds. And this is the first key point. People often think of narcissism as self-love, where this image in the text says he knows not what he there beholds. It's not necessarily about self-love. Okay? There's actually some self-hatred, a lack of self-recognition. He does not recognize who he is, okay, in the image. So then he sees and points his longing, and the air that is used allures his eyes. The wire for his glory, so vainly catching at the splitting form. The sea that you are seeking has no place. Avert your gaze, and you will lose your love. Resist and hold your eyes is nothing save the image of yourself reflected back. It comes and waits with you, and has no life. It will depart if you will only go. So if we think of narcissism not as self-love, more the self-hatred helps us get to the psychological roots of where it comes from. Some of the categories that you might think explain what this is are traits such as being authoritative. Someone has a sense that they have authority, they're commanding presence. They need to know that they are superior, that they're better than other people, that they have better knowledge or better abilities than others. They have a sense of self-sufficiency, that they can do it on their own. They don't need help from others. They can do it. Now, if you think about worldly traits, they're often actually called kind of the good side of narcissism. Think about someone like me, a professor trying to stand up in front of a room of students and trying to teach them. You need to have some sense of authority, that you are the authority figure as the teacher. You need to have that sense of superiority, that you might have knowledge that's worth imparting to people that you can help benefit them. And a sense of self-sufficiency you often admire in people, that they are disciplined, they can take care of themselves, they're independent. So those traits, to argue, are actually a good thing. Now, these other traits aren't clearly as a good thing. Exhibitionism. This is the sense that they want to be seen, they're going to make a show, they're going to try to get attention and pointing from other people. This is tied to straight up vanity, where people, this is the kind of self-love that people usually think of with narcissism, that if they want to look good all the time, they want their image to be sharp and pristine. And the way they keep this is usually through exploitative means. They don't care about what other people have to them, they lack empathy, and so they're going to exploit situations for their own benefit. The last one is entitlement. And this type of entitlement is not necessarily the general sense of entitlement. It's really narcissistic entitlement, but within it, it's really negative, that they think they deserve more than other people. Some of the things that we've seen in general research on narcissism is that they're really great at finding opportunities for self-enhancement. When they're presented with a situation, it benefits them, they'll go after it, they'll make it happen, make themselves look good. They'll constantly seek for the attention of others. There's some ways that narcissistic CEOs do this. It really affects how firms function as they seek attention. If you go to a narcissist and he tries to deliver negative criticism, it doesn't go well, okay? They don't hear it, okay? There's the research that actually shows that they psychologically, cognitively, do not process the information. Just in one ear and out the other. That's kind of expressly true of narcissists. And what happens when you do that, they often respond negatively, and that's where you see things like low integrity. Okay, they'll exploit situations, they're not truthful at all times. They'll engage in deviant behavior, and I'll show you that narcissistic CEOs engage in that in certain ways. There's a couple quotes that help explain, I think, how you should think about narcissists. So this is from a group of psychologists, and they say think of narcissists as individuals for whom enhancing the positivity of the self, specifically to achieve status and esteem, is overwhelmingly important. Much of the psychological and social life is directed toward this goal. When they wake up, they think about it. When they're going out for the day, they think about it. This occupies their mind and their life. The next quote comes from a popular textbook that some of you may have seen or read, called The Mirror Effect, Girls House Celebrities, kind of accentuate narcissism in our society. And here they say that narcissists are masters at creating ways of getting what they do need to exist. Positive feedback and instruction from others. And this ties back to that disconnect that narcissists, when you can recognize themselves, when a narcissist is disconnected from their self-image, they're often looking for ways to reinforce what they think their self-image is. So they're for positive feedback, instruction from others. I think it's important today. This is not a new personality trait, but the evidence suggests that it's something we should be aware of and think about in today's world. So here's a little old data that I can show you the trend as we continue upwards. What we have here are scores on a narcissistic personality inventory, which is the psychological measure you fill out to say how narcissistic am I. What you can see here is back in the 1980s, the average on that scale was about 15. and we've seen a steady increase. Everyone that took in this data was college sophomores. So it's the same group every year, college sophomores. And you see it just creeping up. If you took this today, I promise you it'd be even higher, based on my experience with college students. And they show that 1 out of 16 of those of all ages experience symptoms of it. So it's not just college students, it's adults and people in all walks of life. That started increase, that was a 13% increase in the average score. Another study, which was a huge sample, showed that 6% of the population experienced high levels of narcissism. Of a lot of people, they think a lot of people are, in general, men are more narcissistic than women. And younger people are more narcissistic than older people. What causes this? Where does this trait of narcissism come from? Is it something we're born with? Does it develop over time? The first explanation is a clinical one. And this view kind of says, what happens to your upbringing that affects how you behave? So in this extreme form, the disorder form, is caused by early childhood trauma in the form of sexual, physical, and emotional abuse, or severe neglect. So early childhood experiences threaten self-esteem. Okay? Think about not being able to recognize yourself. Okay? That's what happens when a young child experiences early childhood trauma when they're developing their self-image, when they disrupt it. Okay? And they can't connect with it. It leads to feelings of shame, emptiness, and self-blame, which causes unrelenting desire to seek attention, admiration, and external validation. That's the extreme form. And it's happening. Here's some data from 1980 to 1983. The incidence of maltreatment of children for 1,000 children rose from 9.8 to 23.1, doubling over that 13-year period. Taking up from the end of that sample to 2006, emotionally neglected children more than doubled. So what we're seeing is, as societal things decay, family units, more child want to live on, all these kind of social trends we see that really affect children in their development, and that leads to maladaptive personality traits, such as narcissism. That's kind of the most